Hey, guys, welcome back to my channel. This is a story of what if Naruto trained seriously, after the Sasuke retrieval arc. After Naruto and Sasuke's fight at the Valley of the End, Naruto has an epiphany, and everything he thought about changes. Now during his training trip with Jiraya, the blonde trains like crazy, returning to the village, 2.5 years later, as a new shinobi. One who vows to protect the village even if it costs his life. However, those who knew his usual nature wished he didn't change. Before we start, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, it means a lot to me, and check the description for the creator of this great fanfic. Now let's start the story.
The
fight will be between the Alliance and Akatsuki alone. Kabuto and his resurrected army won't take part in it. Sasuke will have Itachi's eyes eventually. With that out of the way, let us begin. Chapter 23 Final Battle Part 1. After convincing the young Uchiha, Tsunade was left with a couple of issues to take care of regarding the situation at hand, which not only meant more paperwork, but also meant dealing with sensitive issues. Uchiha Sasuke's crimes against Konoha were not so severe. The punk's only crime thus far was to abandon the village and join the company of the village's strongest criminals. The first item of the agenda involved keeping his presence in Konoha a secret. Doing so was easy by simply giving Sasuke an Anbu mask. He would not leave the perimeter of his old compound, so Tsunade would not need to worry about others finding out, at least not before the battle begins. The most sensitive topic was no doubt Itachi, or rather Itachi's corpse to be precise. After performing a quick diagnostic, Tsunade was able to conclude that Itachi's health situation was not that good to begin with. Sasuke was surprised to hear that even before fighting him, Itachi didn't have much time left. He was even more surprised to hear that his health would not allow Itachi to fight at full strength. Aside from the history behind it, Sasuke wanted to see if he had the skills to overcome his brother. He imagined that Itachi's defeat was more than proof of that. When asked about the disease, Tsunade said that she had to run more tests on Itachi to verify and come up with the cause and consequence. The medic Hokage understood Sasuke's concern. Since Uchiha-wise, Sasuke had also evolved his eyes to Itachi's level. He thus wondered if what Itachi suffered was due to the Mangenkyu Sharingan. Tsunade promised to find out more, but informed that she just could not perform the analysis like she would with any other, from fear of raising too many questions she didn't want to answer right now. Shizune came up with the solution by installing the equipment inside one of the rooms provided by the empty Uchiha compound. With that out of the way, the final preparations was Shikaku's task. The teams were already accustomed to one another, so right now it was only a matter of placing the right team against the right enemy. The Nara clan head had gathered all possible information handled by Kumo and Suna. His job was focused on analyzing the members of the organization and list both their strengths and known weaknesses. The last part was easily the hardest. With all of them being S-ranked ninja, they simply had very few weakness, or at least not ones that the Alliance could capitalize upon as easily enough to kill them. Shikaku called in his son for the job. Shikamaru inherited most of his father's intellect, needing only experience to become like his old man. Together they could gather as much information as possible about the enemy, hoping beyond hope that the Alliance would win in the end. If not, then at least, they could weaken the enemy so that the cages could move and deal with the organization for the last time. This was the last option, but logic dictated that a plan B was necessary. With Naruto quickly parrying Sasuke's sword with his staff, Naruto moved in to strike Sasuke's shoulder, but Sasuke evaded and moved in for the strike, failing to land a hit. After taking care of everything, Sasuke wished to fight Naruto once more, this time limited to only physical abilities. Sasuke realized, though, that Naruto's skill with his weapon was on par with his own ability with the sword added by the Sharingan. Naruto would attack, already positioning himself for defense. Naruto's weapon was also a piece of work. No matter how much strength Sasuke used, Naruto's staff would not break. The worst part was that his opponent could strike from both parts of the staff, forcing Sasuke to keep his eyes peeled for unorthodox movements. The spar remained for half an hour, before Sasuke stopped all of a sudden. Naruto looked at his former teammate for a while, expecting some sort of deception, but Sasuke just returned his sword inside his scabbard, while looking at Naruto as if he was sizing the blonde up. No offense Sasuke, but I don't swing that way. Naruto said with a smirk on his face as he saw Sasuke's angry expression on his face at the accusation. Naruto just shrugged. I don't know if you're interested in women, since you've never shown anything. Don't be ridiculous, I'm serious here, back when we were teammates. You could have chosen any girl to be with you. You instead avoided everyone like a plague. Now that I think about it, it actually makes sense. Sasuke frowned even more when Naruto placed a hand below his chin, pondering. Sasuke's initial concern was how Naruto measured up to him as far as the shinobi arts, but when Naruto irritated him, he simply turned and walked off, not interested anymore. He may have improved greatly, but Naruto would always find something to make fun of. Still, it unsettled Sasuke that Naruto could be this good. Sasuke's training was not limited to only his own strength and speed. Orochimaru's second-in-command Kabuto has access to a great number of chemical substances that would increase the human body's potential. Sasuke's speed was a byproduct of his own training aided by Kabuto's prowess. Sasuke of course could not know that Naruto's incredible chakra reservoir allowed him to use more extreme methods of training. While Sasuke trained extensively throughout 3 years, Naruto could say he at least trained 4 if not 5 times what Sasuke did, by using his clones. In addition, if Sasuke were to believe what his eyes told him, Naruto's chakra reserves had only gotten larger. Is there something on your mind that you're standing there not saying anything? Once more Sasuke stopped thinking and merely turned and walked away. Naruto saw the Anbu squad leaving the area as well. Do you enjoy irritating him that much? Naruto smirked as his girlfriend materialized behind him. I would be lying if I said no, I sort of missed messing with him, that's all. Naruto then turned to face the cat mask. You're still on duty. Yugo inclined her head in question, before smiling at the way Naruto was positioned. Yes, I am. But that doesn't mean I can't wipe that smirk off your face. Yugo said, before removing her ninjutsu out of its scabbard. With Sasuke while walking towards the Uchiha compound, Sasuke calmly pondered on the events thus far. The Hokage prohibited him from setting foot near the more populated areas, but said prohibition was unneeded. He actually craved for zero interaction with others. He thought about a lot. He thought about his family, he thought about his brother and the reasons behind every choice Itachi made throughout his life. Ever since Sasuke could remember, Itachi was his role model, his idol. It was interesting that he would think more highly of Itachi than their own father. Uchiha Fugaku was the Uchiha clan head when Sasuke was born. Sasuke rarely saw his father do anything other than teaching him the grand fireball technique 10 years ago. Therefore, his eyes only settled on Itachi as his older brother showed time and time again why everyone considered him a prodigy. His brother knew everything about everything, and what irritated Sasuke was that Itachi always made everything seem so easy. It irritated Sasuke even more when he tried it and failed miserably. Above all, Itachi was the only one in the clan, aside from Sasuke's mother, that treated him like family. His father only had eyes for his skills as shinobi. His cousins would always come and talk to him about how lucky Sasuke was at being Fugaku's son and Itachi's brother. It was partially because of how kind Itachi was that Sasuke couldn't believe why Itachi walked along the path he created for himself. Sasuke looked up to see his old sensei Kakashi hanging by a tree while reading his orange book like usual. Sasuke kept walking as he passed by Kakashi. You seem pensive about something. Sasuke stopped to address the gray-haired Junin. His old sensei hadn't changed one bit, always looking bored to everything around him. Yes, I was enjoying some alone time until someone decided to ruin it. Kakashi simply smirked at the jab and placed his book inside his pants pocket, before approaching his former student. Kakashi always prided himself of grasping facial expressions. Every dujutsu user was actually. Sasuke was looking at the ground the entire time. There is nothing you should concern yourself with, Kakashi. Even if sensei knew that statement to be false, he knew that the student wouldn't share it with him. Sasuke never bothered to open up to Kakashi in the past, so he wouldn't even consider the possibility now as he had more time to ponder on his life events. Kakashi didn't think too much of it, though. Suit yourself, though I was hoping to review a thing or two about Itachi that could clear your mind a bit. Sasuke looked at Kakashi with venom, but the sensei merely shrugged it off. Kakashi grabbed his book once more and walked away, only to stop when Sasuke called for him. What is that you want to say? Kakashi closed the book and placed both hands inside his pocket as he addressed Sasuke. I was hoping you had figured this out by now, but I guess your mind was clouded by your brother's deception. Sasuke narrowed his eyes at his sensei for how the man described Itachi's actions thus far. Deception. A shinobi's most powerful tool meant for misdirection. The act of deliberately making somebody believe something untrue as the truth. Sasuke knew that what Itachi did was nothing far from that simple word, deception. He didn't know why, though. Itachi explained to me the truth, what he did not explain was the reason behind everything. Kakashi nodded, accepting Sasuke's reason. Well, then you really want to hear what I have to say to you. Sasuke looked suspiciously at his old sensei, wondering what Kakashi knew about his brother that he hadn't revealed yet. Unknown location. Their meeting were always carried in secluded and open places where they could hide from everyone and proceed with their occupation, extracting the Biju from the Jinchuriki. Right now, though, the Akatsuki organization faced a different type of situation that neither of the members accounted for. The simple idea of more than two villages uniting even if for one specific goal was unheard of. Sure, there were several occasions in the past when two villages would get together to jointly rid themselves of a third village. Konoha was constantly bombarded by Kumogakure, Iwagakure, Sunagakure and Kurigakure in the past three great ninja wars. There was never a time where three great ninja villages would form an alliance. There was simply too much blood between them for anything to work properly. When Zetsu communicated his findings, the organization leader Pain was skeptical. However, seeing as all the remaining Biju are now gathered in Konoha, the leader couldn't find anything to refute. Initially, Pain thought of going to Konoha and capture them all. However, the man wasn't crazy enough to believe himself capable of dealing with 4 Jinchuriki, 3 Kage and the entire Konoha force by himself. However, if the entire organization were to make a move, their odds would improve greatly. So, standing the middle of the dark cave, Pain and Conan waited as his peers came from various directions at once. Hidan and Kakuzu came from the east, Deidara and Tobi appeared from the west with Tobi introducing himself in his own goofy kind of way, which caused Deidara to snarl at him. Zetsu materialized from below the ground and Kisame appeared from within a water shunshin. Since Itachi was killed by Sasuke, the organization didn't have a suitable replacement to become Kisame's partner. Kisame was never one to work with a partner. Even if he enjoyed his conversations with Itachi, there was never an occasion where they would join forces against an enemy. A couple seconds of silence followed before Pain began the meeting. So far we've managed to capture 5 of the total 9 Biju. The Ikibi, Nibi, Hachibi and Kyubi Jinchuriki, however, have eluded our capture thus far. Pain began surmising their situation. The damn Kyubi Jinchuriki ruined the Ikibi's capture. That damn brat will receive a piece of my art soon. It was no secret how angry Deidara became of Naruto for completely defeating him and still able to defeat Sasori using the fox's chakra. Indeed, the Kyubi Jinchuriki's sudden increase in skill and prowess with the fox's chakra took everyone by surprise. 3 years ago, Uzumaki Naruto was brash, brainless and hyperactive enough to easily be caught in a trap. In fact, when the organization started hunting the Jinchuriki, it was settled that Naruto would be their easiest prey. The Sandaime Hokage played a big favor in not allowing anyone to train the boy into becoming a weapon for the village. Konoha had also played against us in capturing the Nibi Jinchuriki. The Raikage wouldn't be aware of our presence fast enough to stop the capture. Kakuzu stated, earning various nods. Now the hidden village in the leaves has managed an impossible feat, convincing Suna and Kumogakure into joining forces against Akatsuki. The meeting fell into deep and dreaded silence, as the voice that made the final statement didn't come from any of them. Deidara looked at his goofy partner and nearly jumped off the floor when Toba's posture shifted completely. Kisame looked murderous at the direction of the voice, since he remembered it belonged to the Sandaime Mizukage. Kakuzu and Hidan narrowed his eyebrows towards the specific direction as well. All of them looked at Tobi, all of them clueless except Pain and Conan, who already knew about Toba's real identity, but didn't know the man would be revealing it to the others. "It's a pleasure to meet you all," Tobi said, just as the right Sharingan eye appeared. "Madara." Conan mumbled in surprise. This world is full of lies and deceit. To have fooled everyone here for so long. You certainly hadn't changed one bit, Sandaime Mizukage-sama. Now Kakuzu narrowed his eyes at Kisame. The man had contacts in the black market and thus he had knowledge of rumors preceding the civil war in Kurigakure. He even had knowledge of how the Sanbi Jinchuriki and Yondaime Mizukage were being controlled by someone powerful the entire time. Being a mercenary, Kakuzu didn't have any issues with anything so long as said issues didn't mess with his bounties. He was in for the money after all. Kakuzu was also considered a highly experienced individual and thus didn't require much time to come to a vital realization. It became obvious when he heard the man's name and saw the Sharingan eye. I assume that you orchestrated this entire organization from the shadows then. Toba's amused and controlled laughter set everyone on edge. His presence alone made everyone on edge. Even Pain looked intimidated by the man's presence, and that was saying something. Certainly it's nice to see you once more, Kisame. Your words are flattering. And you're right, Kakuzu-san, I've been running this organization from the shadows since the very beginning. I would be remiss, however, in presuming that all of you feel betrayed by following Pain's presumed leadership. In normal circumstances, I wouldn't feel the need to reveal my true identity. Events, however, changed my initial endeavor. Konoha and in particular, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki played a huge part in changing the normal course of our plan. Now, the three-village alliance managed to unite their strongest fighters, followed by the remaining four Jinchuriki to engage against Akatsuki. Jiraya of the Sannin and Hitaki no Kakashi are among them. Deidara and Hidan, being the most hyperactive members of the organization, voiced their displeasure at being ordered around by an Uchiha. Kakuzu and Kisame, though sharing their protest, didn't voice it. They were smart enough not to outright pressure Uchiha Madara into anything. They were also smart enough to realize that not following the man now was out of the question. In the end, though, both Kakuzu and Kisame figured that the following fights would be to their advantage. Kakuzu would be able to receive the bounties and Kisame would face powerful opponents to satisfy his urge for battle. Do you believe we should unite forces against them and march towards Konoha? It was Conan who asked, earning a nod from the masked Uchiha. While it's true that Suna and Kumo have their most powerful shinobi stationed in Konoha, the fact remains that the remaining Jinchuriki are all gathered in one place, making it easy for us to capture all of the Jinchuriki once and for all. I'd imagine that some of you don't wish to remain loyal to Akatsuki, so for those who don't wish to remain, can walk away. Being S-ranked criminals had given all of the Akatsuki members some sort of clairvoyance when it comes to sensing danger, or at least a danger level far above what they are used to. Simply believing that they could walk away from Akatsuki without any form of punishment was ridiculous. Also believing that they wouldn't have their heads cut off after doing so was even more ridiculous and even laughable. As if you wouldn't kill us if that ever was our decision. Kakuzu snorted, earning a mock laughter from Toby. He really could see that Kakuzu became insulted. Indeed, that would be the penalty, but I never said anything about prohibition, did I? This time everyone released a snort of derision. Attack when they least expect it, instead of allowing them to come prepared against us. Toby said before vanishing within his own space-time ninjutsu in front of everyone. The rest of the members stood there dumbfounded, as never in their wildest imaginations could they believe that the clown Toby was in fact the shadow leader of the organization. The name Uchiha Madara was known by most as a legend, but only Kakuzu could truly state what it was to face such a man, as he was the eldest in the group. The former Takigaker ninja was not surprised that the man was alive, because he also had found a way to beat death, even if said method involved taking the lives of others. In Fire Country, all the members of the Akatsuki, excluding Toby, were casually walking towards the green fields of Fire Country, heading straight towards Konoha. Zetsu was below ground, working his sensory magic by tracking any nearby shinobi who could warn of their presence ahead of time. There wasn't a doubt in their minds that no one would be able to spot them without either S-ranked shinobi knowing it in advance and dealing with the threat appropriately, but they needed to catch Konoha by surprise. The absence of their shadow leader was a bit unnerving for the group, but no one dared to question Pain about this entire mess. Leader or not, Pain was the strongest of them all and possessor of the legendary dojutsu. The fact that his full power remained a mystery to everyone only fuels the organization's uncertainty of what exactly his abilities were. Of course, one of the group had to act stupid, and that was Hidan. Oi leader-sama, what's the deal here, huh? If you're actually our leader. Everyone stopped and looked to the fool. Hidan, shut up. Kakuzu narrowed his eyes at his partner, while questioning the man's stupidity. No, I'm not going to shut up, Kakuzu. I don't know who the hell appointed you as the leader, just because of those stupid eyes. Pain looked at the silver-haired member with stoic visage. You question me, believing that no matter what I do, I wouldn't be able to kill you. But how about if your soul ever left your body? Hidan was immediately startled as Pain focused his measure of killing intent added by the Rinnegan. Removing one's soul was pretty much unheard of in the shinobi world, but Hidan couldn't find himself to believe that Pain was just bluffing. Thanks to his sacrifices, Hidan's body achieved immortality. He didn't know what would happen if his soul was detached from his body. Pain just kept walking towards their destination while the group followed, with the exception of Hidan, who couldn't stop shivering at the sudden possibility of being killed. It was definitely not a good feeling for someone who considered himself immortal. As the Akatsuki group ventured beneath the forests that surrounded Konohagakure, none of them noticed a small blue toad wearing red vest and goggles. The small amphibian went through hand seals immediately before slamming both hands on the ground. The members of the Akatsuki were startled by the sudden smoke, since Zetsu was nowhere to be seen or felt. All of a sudden, 50-foot red toad wearing a blue kimono appeared in front of the Akatsuki members, before Gamabunta opened his mouth. From within, the three teams from the alliance charged and got into position in front of their enemy. The Konoha nin were smiling that their plan worked in the end. Allowing these guys to invade Konoha would no doubt result in full destruction. At least, now, they could fight head-on, knowing that no damage would befall Konoha and its citizens. The rest of the alliance just didn't have the same concern. It seems Shikamaru's concern proved merit, huh? Naruto turned to Jiraiya, who nodded. In one of the meetings, Shikamaru theorized that there was nothing keeping Akatsuki from attacking the village, since the alliance ended up gathering the remaining Jinchuriki in one place, making it easier to capture them. So, Jiraiya conversed with the toads so that they could form a ring around the village forests so as to anticipate their movements and summon the teams directly to the location. It worked like a charm. All they had to do now was deal with the S-ranked criminals for good. Personally, it was Jiraiya's and Naruto's favorite part of the plan. That kid is just like his father. You'd think that clan of smartasses could see the future. Gamabunta, please do as we planned. The gigantic toad nodded, before gathering as much air as possible. He hurled a gigantic water ball at the Akatsuki group, forcing them all to scatter. Gamabunta even added another attack and charged with his sword. The teams soon followed, each one picking their target. It was decided that Jiraiya's team would choose the members they knew next to nothing about. Being the strongest member of the group, he would be more equipped to handle surprises than the rest. With his job done, Gamabunta left. Jiraiya's team stood in the center, facing Pain and Conan. Gaara's team faced off against Hidan and Kakuzu. Team Darui was pitted against Deidara and Kisame. Team Jiraiya. With the plan accomplished, Jiraiya and his team stood in front of Pain and Conan. To Naruto and the rest, Jiraiya appeared focused in the upcoming battle. However, the man was unbelievably perplexed at what or actually, who stood before him. Jiraiya knew that no genjutsu was casted on him, so that meant that these two whom he believed were dead, were now facing him in open combat. Jiraiya could not help but remember his happy memories with the three orphans he encountered right after the Sanin's fight against Hanzo the Salamander a long time ago. Picturing those three as responsible for the chaos that emerged in the elemental nations brought shame to him. He thought he had trained them better than this. It's been too long, hasn't it, Jiraiya-sensei? Pain greeted, earning a snarl from the Sanin and a questioning look directed at him from Naruto and the others. What is the man talking about? Jiraiya ignored Naruto's question, as he needed answers right now. The man before him was similar to the eldest orphan Yahiko, but the Rinnegan eyes were a surprise. As far as he remembered, only Nagato had the Rinnegan. Yahiko, why are you doing all this? What happened to the three of you after I left? Conan and Pain kept looking at their old sensei with apathy, though neither of the two enjoyed hearing the name of their best friend lover. Yahiko is no more, Jiraiya-sensei. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes at the information. It should not be possible, as this man could not be Nagato. Nagato's appearance was much different. Jiraiya then turned to the rest as they waited for an explanation. Back when the Second Great Ninja War was in full swing, Omegakure was the center of the war as the country shared borders with Fire, Earth and Wind Country. Thus, more rather than not, Rain Country became the battle stage. At the time, AIM's leader Hanzo the Salamander managed to drive everyone away from his country, including the Sanin formed by myself, Orochimaru and Tsunade. Kazedakai nodded as he remembered being just a chunin at the time. At the time, we three just couldn't beat Hanzo, so we escaped. We managed to find a hideout to rest and then return to Konoha, when I found three kids hiding from us. At the time, Tsunade did not care about them and Orochimaru actually wanted to kill them, but I believed that it would be better to give them some training so that they could better protect themselves in such a dangerous environment. I stayed with them and trained them for a couple of years before leaving. I have not heard of them ever again and had actually heard rumors that they were killed. Two of those kids are standing in front of us right now. One of them has the Rinnegan and the woman possesses a paper manipulation bloodline. Half of Jiraya was conflicted about sharing this info against the 3 orphans he went out of his way to help. However, those 3 orphans were now the leaders of the organization that was threatening to kill his godson as well as destroy the entire elemental nations. Naruto kept looking at the enemies and tried picturing any similarities with himself. Usually, those who were trained by the same man had similar goals and way of thinking. That was the logic of being chosen by the Gamma Sanin. The man would not just waste his time training someone that did not share his view of things. I do not wish to extend this any more than we already had, Jiraiya-sensei. Hand us the Jinchuriki already and I won't kill any of you. The team narrowed their eyes at the threat. The team saw Conan's body transform into loads of paper, before charging straight at them. Immediately, Kozetsukai took a step back as the other 4 went through hand seals. Jukas and Naruto provided the wind while Sasuke and Jiraiya gathered air inside their lungs for the grand fireball technique. All the paper immediately combusted, but the wind-induced fire technique still had enough strength and speed. The combined ninjutsu reached Pain, who simply stood there unmoving. He lifted his right hand, before an unknown force repelled the combined ninjutsu as if it was nothing. Right afterward, Conan emerged by his side slightly burned, but otherwise fine. Jiraiya and the others kept looking at the Rinnegan user, wondering how he managed to repel a combined ninjutsu so easily like that. Any effort on your part is useless against a god. To prove his point, Pain lifted his right leg and kicked Kozetsukai right in the chest. The Suna Junin attempted to use an invisibility genjutsu to approach the enemy. Kozetsukai was sent flying towards his team, lacking air and bleeding from his mouth. The genjutsu user was secured by Jukas and Naruto, while Jiraiya focused on the enemy. Against a dojutsu, genjutsu is practically useless. Kozetsukai's attempt was due to the man getting into position behind the enemy's sight, meaning that Pain had sensor capabilities as well. The Rinnegan still remained a mystery, however. Jiraiya could only theorize about it. Right now, the worst enemy was no doubt Nagato. He had a feeling that Conan could be easily dealt with by Sasuke and Naruto. Right now, it was better to take down the opposition rather than facing Pain altogether. Naruto, Sasuke, we need to take down Conan. You guys take her on. The 2 youngsters of the group nodded, before they looked at each other with a smirk. We're on it. Naruto responded, earning a nod from Jiraiya who went through hand seals, while at the same time nodding towards Jukas for some assistance. Kaden Karyu Enden Fire Release. Fire Dragon Flame Projectile Technique Fuden Kameidachi Wind Release. Cutting Whirlwind Technique. The 2 combined techniques were aimed at Conan. Naruto and Sasuke were already moving as they had to take the opportunity and split the enemies apart. Sasuke was moving ahead with his Sharingan blazing. The combined ninjutsu was soon stopped by Pain, using the same method as before. However, the smoke generated by Jiraiya's technique was enough to cloud their sight for a brief moment. Naruto and Sasuke quickly emerged from the smoke and Sasuke kicked Conan away from the group, while Naruto kept watch on Pain to see if he would attack Sasuke's back. Like he expected, a metal rod emerged from Pain's hand and with it, Pain moved to strike Naruto. Before the rod could pierce Naruto's heart, 4 chakra chains erupted from his back, parrying the rod and attacking Pain. The Rinnegan user dodged them all effortlessly when Jiraiya appeared in front of him with his Rasengan, forcing Pain's attention away from Naruto, who vanished towards Sasuke's position. Naruto and Sasuke against Conan. As soon as Naruto reached Sasuke's position, he was surprised to see that Sasuke and Conan were already engaged in deep and close combat. Naruto could attest that Conan's paper bloodline was quite fearsome. Apparently, the paper could be folded into sharp shuriken and even paper bombs. Sasuke appeared to be struggling as he sliced every piece of paper that came at him with his sword. Some of them passed through and caused a few bruises along his arm. Naruto had to move quickly and assist. In one swift motion, Naruto appeared behind Sasuke and went through a quick succession of hand seals. He needed to stop the barrage of attacks. Sweetened Sujinheki Water Release. Water Wall Technique. The sudden appearance of the water wall forced Conan's paper attack to stop and it gave Sasuke some room to breathe. What took you so damn long? Sasuke got into position as he looked at Naruto with narrowed eyes. The other guy attacked me, while you attacked her. I had to defend. Can you see where she is? I have to direct the water. Sasuke nodded and focused his Sharingan past the water ninjutsu to spot her position. Naruto was already molding a few more hand signs when Sasuke pointed him in the right direction. The water wall was transformed into a giant dragon, before charging at Conan. Sweetened Suiryukiba no Jutsu Water Release. Water Dragon Fang Technique. The woman quickly used her bloodline to evade the technique, however, and moved in for another attack with her paper bloodline. Sasuke was prepared, however, and exhaled a great fireball straight towards the place where the papers were gathered. The paper was scattered in random directions, all of a sudden, before materializing in another position. Reformed, Conan looked at her opponents. She could attest to their teamwork, and it was something the Akatsuki did not expect. Sasuke went rogue a long time ago. They shouldn't have had the time to train such teamwork, as just days ago, they were bitter enemies. Meanwhile, Naruto and Sasuke looked at her with a frown. Can you see any weaknesses, Sasuke? Sasuke negated with his head as he observed the woman with his Sharingan. None so far, she can use her bloodline to evade any of our ninjutsu. Getting close also isn't an option, as she can use her bloodline and transform into paper. Naruto frowned at the intel, or the lack of for that matter. So far, despite having a numerical advantage against her, Conan had the advantage of an unknown bloodline that she could use to evade attacks and attack from long range. She was also fast enough to avoid receiving a direct hit from their ninjutsu. Any planning on their part would have to wait as Conan moved to strike them once more. They saw the paper suddenly form two separate wings on her back, earning a snarl from Sasuke at the obvious disadvantage. The woman could fly. Suddenly, the wings were point towards them, before each sent a new barrage of paper towards them. Sasuke's Sharingan could see that the paper were actually seals formulas. Paper bombs, damn it. Naruto looked at Sasuke in surprise, before the attack hit the target. The paper hit the ground and caused one big explosion. For a moment, Conan believed that her attack was enough. She was surprised, however, when a pillar of water rose from the smoke, before a wave was formed, charging straight at her with great speed. Conan was surprised with the sudden movement, but managed to get away from the technique. Sweetened Sushoha Water Release. Water Collision Destruction Technique. Thank Kami that I took the time and trained this technique, it's rather chakra taxing if you ask me. Sasuke kept looking at Naruto and was shocked at the amount of chakra just used by his teammate. The amount was simply ridiculous. Simply put, it was as much as his entire chakra supply, and Naruto did not look any different afterward. Naruto turned to Sasuke. In one of my relaxing periods, I've decided to check on some techniques and found a scroll about the Nadaime Hokage's Suiten techniques. That was one of them, though the old bastard was able to use water techniques without any nearby source of water and twice as big. Naruto was smiling the entire time, and Sasuke became unsettled. He decided to pester Naruto about it later, however. Do you have anything we can use against her? Naruto negated with his head, looking worried before he remembered something about the Sharingan, or rather Itachi's Sharingan. I may have thought of something, but I'm afraid you won't like to hear it. Sasuke looked at Naruto from the corner of his eye, before Naruto released his idea. How good are you in casting genjutsu just by looking at the enemy? Like your brother used to do it. Immediately, Sasuke regretted allowing Naruto to speak his mind. However, now was not the time to yell at Naruto for his comment. The damn enemy could turn them into pincushions for target practices. Explain. Naruto could see that Sasuke was grinding his teeth and smirked. If you could trap her in a genjutsu for a few seconds, I could reach her position and deliver the killing blow. Sasuke nodded with a smile at Naruto's idea. He had not tested the Tsukuyomi ability yet, but using ocular genjutsu was one of the Uchiha's many known abilities. Who would have thought a dobi such as yourself could come up with such a plan? Naruto smirked, but said nothing as he watched Conan direct her body towards the ground. I'll attempt to stop her flight for a couple of seconds. You have that long to use it. Sasuke nodded as his eyes caught the paper user Kunoichi descending towards them in great speed. In mere moments, Conan was upon Naruto before she positioned both her wings in stab position. Sasuke watched everything with his Mangenkyu Sharingan and wondered what Naruto would do in order to stop her. His eyes widened to impossible proportions when a sudden wind current erected around Naruto as if the man commanded the force of nature itself. If Sasuke was not facing such a dangerous battle, he would punch himself in the face for not seeing it being used against him. Immediately, using his Mangenkyu Sharingan, Sasuke looked directly at Conan's eyes, forcing her to submission just as Naruto stopped using his wind barrier technique. Not wasting any time, 4 chakra chains left Naruto's back and charged straight towards Conan's now exposed chest. She managed to dispel the illusion quickly enough, but it was not fast enough to stop the chains from piercing her in 4 different and vital areas around her body. With Jiraya Jiraya believed his odds would improve once the boys took Conan away from them. He knew that the woman preferred long-range attacks and played the support style, meaning that he and the rest of the team would be facing the Rinnegan as well as her paper attacks. With her occupied elsewhere, he could deal with pain and pain alone. However, what he believed was an advantage turned out to be the other way around. It began with Juka's acting rash and falling victim to the enemy's metal rods. The other sand shinobi managed to get her out of the original path, thus pain only pierced her stomach instead of her heart. However, the woman wouldn't be able to fight now. Jiraya attempted to rush in when the enemy was occupied with the others, but pain was fast. He used the same force to repel the ninjutsu, but the Sannin saw the extended hand and got out of the way, before engaging in taijutsu. Pain was hit by Jiraya's kick followed by a Rasengan, but Pain dodged the swirling ball of chakra and attacked Jiraya with his metal rod. The Sannin quickly evaded the attacks until he saw Kazedakai appear behind the enemy and perform hand seals. Doden Doryuso, Earth Release. Earth Rising Spears technique. Pain quickly jumped away from the spears and used his repelling force on both Jiraya and Kazedakai, propelling them away. Jiraya quickly summoned a toad to catch him in midair, but Kazedakai wasn't so lucky. He tried using Earth Ninjutsu to soft the land, but still it hurt him pretty badly. The Genjutsu user had a couple ribs cracked, but nothing he could not handle. He nodded at Jiraya signaling that he was fine and returned to Juka's to see if she was better. The woman had knowledge on medical chakra and was busy applying it on herself. I already said it was useless, sensei. You can't defeat me, and to further prove my point, Pain said, before placing both hands on the ground, before the summoning markings appeared on the ground. When 5 more individuals suddenly appeared next to Pain, all having the Rinnegan as well, Jiraya realized that his odds just went from minimal to almost none. Both his teammates were out of commission for the moment and thus he had to face the enemy alone. If it was one thing he regretted right now, it was sending Naruto and Sasuke away to deal with Conan. His regret turned out to be unfolded when he saw a gigantic meteor of fire charge straight at the 6 enemies. He identified the attack as Sasuke's Grand Fireball technique. Jiraiya was surprised when one of the Rinnegan users turned towards the attack. A sudden white field enveloped the man right as the fire ninjutsu reached him. In less than 2 seconds, the attack was fully absorbed by the enemy as if nothing happened. Right afterward, Sasuke and Naruto landed next to Jiraiya. Conan was secured by Naruto's chains and by the looks of things, she was unconscious. Sorry for taking so long, Aro-sensei. The woman was quite a pain to deal with. Jiraiya nodded with a smile on his face as he mentally counted a point in favor of the alliance. Further looking at Conan's body, though, he could see 4 holes in her heart and lungs. He concluded the obvious immediately, but couldn't help but share a final prayer in sympathy for the little girl who offered him a paper-made flower a long time ago. Now looking at Pain, Jiraiya wondered what the man's actions would be after seeing his friend dead in front of him. Pain considered himself a god, but would he be able to not feel anything? Sasuke took 1 step closer to Jiraiya. What can you tell us about him so far? Jiraiya looked at Sasuke briefly and returned to the enemy. The Rinnegan is a force not to be trifled with. So far, what I was able to gather from our fight is that through the Rinnegan, he can use gravity-related techniques. First, he used it to repel ninjutsu and then he used to repel me and Kazedakai like ragdolls. Now when you attacked one of them with your fireball, the enemy was able to absorb the attack, somehow. I can conclude that any ninjutsu near that guy is useless. He should be the first to be taken care of, I'm afraid. The rest remain unknown. Sasuke nodded as he saw the energy of his Kaden jutsu being absorbed. Apparently, Jiraiya wasn't finished. We need to work together against this guy. Juka's tried to go alone and was hurt pretty badly. She would be dead if it weren't for Kazedakai's interference. Anything else you remembered from training them in the past, Aro-sensei? Naruto placed Conan on the ground behind him as he appeared next to Sasuke. The most I gave them was at least the ability to defend themselves, a few elemental ninjutsu, but nothing out of the ordinary. But Nagato had already awakened the Rinnegan back then. Naruto nodded as he took his bow staff while Sasuke had his sword with him. Jiraiya nodded at this but wondered what more secrets would be revealed by his first student and if said secrets would end up killing either Sasuke, Naruto or even himself before anyone was able to stop it. He needed to use trick he had available to him. It would be the first enemy he ever had to use it against. Author note: okay, that's enough for now. For those who enjoyed Conan's character, my apologies. However, from the Akatsuki, I believe that she was the easiest to kill. Now, I didn't say that she was the weakest of them all. Like Deidara, it was just a case of casting a genjutsu long enough so that another opponent could move for the kill. Itachi did it against the Mad Bomber when Akatsuki recruited him, and Sasuke did the same thing when they fought. Now the battle against Pain barely started and the Rinnegan user had already showed how fearsome he is. Can Jiraiya, Sasuke and Naruto overcome such a force? Next chapter, I'll be focusing on the other battles as well, so don't worry. There is plenty action still left in this story. See ya. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.